Patch 1.3.3 just dropped, and this patch has a ton of balance changes. We'll go through all the new cosmetics and all the fun stuff being added to the game first, and then we'll hit up the balance changes, but if you're just here for those, don't worry, they're timestamped down below. First of all, we have our mid-month skin, the Mecha Absa. Absa is powered up and ready to roll on our latest bundle that includes the Mecha Absa skin, emote, icon, and a brand new cosmetic category, Critical Hit. The bundle also includes 25,000 coins and 250 ether bucks as always. The Critical Hit effect is the first of its kind and can be set to replace the standard purple kill screen. This is something that I've wanted in the game for a little bit, because as much as I like the purple kill screen, I did think it was something they could improve on and grow, and see some change in. I'm going to play the video really quickly and show you what it looks like over here, if I can find it. So you see Absa, and then it says like Critical Hit, and it's like got the Evangelion font. It looks real fun. So I think that'll be like her kill screen now instead of the purple, which I'm excited for. If y'all plan on getting this bundle, by the way, using code LASTSTOCK helps me a ton, but it's never necessary. Moving on to the Rano Riptide skin, they say, fans of Rivals of Aether may recognize this palette with the flowery pants and killer tan. We're excited to share the Riptide Pool Party Rano palette. This is the first esport palette to break the mold of the R2S Season 1 sports theme. Even athletes need a vacation, right? Pick up the new palette and rep Riptide to show your support. If you buy the bundle but already own the base skin, you'll receive an Ether Bucks refund to make it even, just like our other bundles. Keep an eye out for more circuit palettes in the future as we prepare to announce the second half of the R2 CS. This palette is free to all players attending Riptide. You can also check out upcoming and past events and the region leaderboards on our official league page, which I do plan to have a video in the future going over like the R2 CS standings more towards the end of the season. Moving on though, we have some new shop items, Purple Mecha Kragg and Black Mecha Etalus. I really like these. I really like the Black Mecha Etalus skin. I think that Etalus has always looked good with like darker colors, but he doesn't have very many dark palettes, so I'm happy to see this. We also have Yellow Mecha Clairen and Midnight Mecha Wrastor. The Clairen one's fine, I guess. It kind of matches that like gold Loxodont skin that he has, so I think that's cool, like a foil to him. The Wrastor one I actually really like. I think these colors are so sick, and I'd like to see them come to the other mecha skins as well, because he looks kind of like evil, you know, which is kind of fun. We then have some icons, the Early Bird Wrastor icon, the Drift Monk Facepalm emote, I guess it's this one, the Avatar Fleet icon, the Avatar Linnington icon. I'm not familiar with Mr. Linnington, but he looks really dapper, and the plush pin Absa icon, which is from the plushie. They misspelled it here. Moving on to our balance though, this is the important part, and there's a lot of changes. Normally I go through these changes with you guys and I react to them the first time, but I'm going to be very honest, I thought Orcane was going to be nerfed this patch, and I play the whale, so I skimmed through all the changes, and it's like actually a lot. Like this is crazy. Like we're only 2 characters deep and it's already that much. So we're going to break it down. I'm going to try to keep it quick and not waste anyone's time today. Important note for Collision 25 attendees, Collision will be run on the previous patch, meaning these changes will not be active at the event. Players wishing to practice on previous patches may do so by going to Steam, Properties, Betas, click the drop-down, and then the previous version. You can always do this actually, which I think is really cool if you have an event coming up that's on the last patch. For general changes, off-screen indicators will now show the character directly instead of just their portrait. This is great. I know they were having trouble optimizing this, and it's been in the works for a minute, so I'm glad to see it finally here. The overhead HUD will now be centered on the character's origin instead of following their model. This allows you to more easily tell when an attack will reverse hit, since you can just look at the difference between your opponent's overhead HUD and your own. Jump speed horizontal max joystick influence multiplier has moved from 0.5 to 0.25. This reduces the amount of speed you can lose by holding backwards during a dash jump, making it harder to do retreating aerials after running towards an opponent. It also slightly decreases the maximum horizontal speed you can get when doing a stationary jump, like jumping out of shield. It doesn't, however, affect the maximum forward jump speed while dashing or running. So I think this is like a really cool change. I feel like characters that wanted to poke at you with things like their forward air, like Loxodont and Clairen, will probably feel this change the most. In characters maybe like Orcane, right, who doesn't really have a real forward air anyways, probably won't feel this one too much. So it is like a general change, but some characters will feel it more than others. Moving on though, pivoting during dash will now retain 20% of your momentum. Dashing will no longer clear your horizontal speed before applying your dash speed. This makes dash speed retain some of the previous momentum. Combined with the pivot momentum change, this makes dash dancing take a bit longer to accelerate in the other direction. Your dash cannot be slowed down by more than 50% regardless of your previous momentum. This also means that your dash can no longer slow you down, which would happen previously if you're moving faster than your dash speed before dashing. A good example of this is Etalus wave dashing before dashing on ice. So overall, I do think this is a good change because dash dancing felt really strong. However, I would need to try it a little bit more than I have already, because it might feel a little bit clunky on some characters, you know? For a quick bug fix, they mentioned that they fixed a bug where inputting an invalid attack would prevent certain other attacks. For example, if you press strong plus grab while releasing your shield, the grab would be locked out as long as the strong input was still in the buffer, even though you can normally grab during that state. Grounded spikes, like aerial spikes, will now receive a tumble threshold adjustment with a minimum multiplier of 0.875. This means that grounded spikes will start sending into tumble a bit earlier, meaning spikes won't flinch opponents for as long. The reason the minimum grounded spike tumble threshold multiplier is higher than the aerial spike version is because grounded spikes directly change the knockback scaling of a move, not the final knockback velocity. So using the same multiplier would make grounded spikes send into tumble much earlier than the aerial spikes. Overall, I like this change. I think grounded spikes have always been really strong in Rivals 2, so I think that anything they can do to kind of like reduce their potency is definitely great. Ledge canceling attack will now always cancel parry stun, regardless of whether they entered parry stun yet or not. Previously, they would get stunned as soon as they ledge canceled the parry attack. This is how it worked in Rivals 1, and it makes situations like this feel more consistent overall. A 10-frame ledge grab lockout timer is now applied when non-tumble hit stun ends. This helps prevent the ledge from getting stolen when hitting the opponent with a weak recovery move, like Wrastor or Absa's up special. Floor hugging now requires your left joystick's Y value to be below horizontal. This makes floor hugging more committal since you can't just hold the right stick downward and still be able to get good DI anymore, which was a problem with specific control schemes that were able to hold the right stick down while doing other actions too easily. For a quick bug fix, they mentioned air friction will no longer be applied when air dodging. This causes air dodges to gain less horizontal distance than intended. I'm not sure where this is happening, but your air dodges should feel more smooth and consistent overall now. Characters that get their shield broken will now be fully inactionable until they hit the ground. This increases the reward for successfully breaking a shield. If there's no ground below them, they'll plummet all the way to the bottom blast zone. I guess this would happen on stages where the platform can go off the stage, right, and then you'd kill them in that little corner, which would be pretty interesting, I guess. For bug fixes, jump inputs will not be cleared when full hopping and short hopping. This fixes a bug that allows players to buffer a frame-perfect double jump when pressing 3 different jump buttons during jump squat. I actually didn't know that this is like a thing in the game, but that's like kind of cool. I'm not sure why this was removed. But I also, like, if it wasn't intentional, you know, that's probably why. Articles that spawn on the ground will now prioritize escaping the ground backwards instead of upwards if they have horizontal velocity. This prevents certain projectiles from teleporting upwards when spawned below the ledge. I'm not exactly sure, like, if I remember where I saw this, but I did see, like, some weird stuff with, like, Kragg rock kind of, like, teleporting around with different items, maybe, like, Maypul's plants or, like, Orcane puddle. Or maybe it was Absa cloud, I'm not 100% sure, but I remember seeing stuff kind of, like, move around weird, so hopefully this fixes that. The side blast zones will now expand by 1 meter for characters who are not in hit stun, just like the bottom blast zones. This makes moves that carry opponents into the blast zones consistently KO the opponent before the attacker. It also has the side effect of preventing situations where you buffer a special move out of hit stun, and the residual horizontal knockback velocity carries you into the blast zone when a double jump towards the stage would have saved you by counteracting the knockback velocity. Taunts can now be cancelled into the teeter state. This is interesting. I like that whenever you like let taunts be cancelled, but this is like a weird way to cancel it. About the side blast zones, I assume that this is because of the new character, and that he has the side B right that like pulls people into the blast zone. So this will make that move like consistently kill them before him, I'd imagine. But overall, I do like the change. This is actually like a really big problem with Smash Ultimate. I don't know how many of y'all have played that game. I assume a lot because it's really popular. But there's a lot of characters where if you side B near the blast zone, your side B will like push you back into the blast zone and then you just like die. Like I played Pokemon Trainer in that game, and Charizard's side B would like consistently kill you if you were near the blast zone and you used it. Because he like steps back a little bit. So I do like this change a lot, and I'm excited to try it out. For Wrastor, he got just a few small changes. His forward special air friction has gone from 0.36 to 0.15. This lets Wrastor use the move in the air without losing quite as much speed. I think this is really cool because the point of this move is to let Wrastor become active, right? He wants to approach with this move, so not losing as much speed will prioritize him getting reward for that property. Ledge attack will now lose its intangibility after the first active window instead of the second active window. This better offsets the strings to the ledge attack and makes it consistent with other 2-hit ledge attacks like Orcane's. I'm okay with this change. It doesn't feel like it's gonna like make or break Wrastor for not having as good as a ledge attack, you know? Moving on to Kragg. Pillar's rising hitbox now lowered 30 centimeters. This makes it a little less risky for opponents to punish Pillar from above, as it would frequently clip their feet from far below. So here's where Pillar used to go to, and now this is where Pillar is going to be staying at, so if you're above Kragg, you can definitely land on him now if he has to use Pillar. I think it's pretty cool because it gives another level of counterplay to Kragg's recovery, without necessarily making the recovery unusable or bad in other scenarios, right? This only applies to very specific spots that you can use against Kragg. For a quick bug fix, hitting Pillar with an article that's attached to a player, i.e. Clairen neutral special, will now restore their wall jump the same way that hitting it with a physical hit does. This is just more consistent, and it makes moves that are disjointed, restore wall jump, and act the same way that a physical move would. Moving on to Maypul though, I don't want to say these last two characters weren't real balance changes, but it's they each only got 1 or 2 changes at most. These upcoming characters are all going to be having a lot, so buckle up. As the fastest character in the game, Maypul excels at both offense and defense. This patch aims to tone down some of her outstanding strengths, such as her ability to wall out, even with forward tilt, her ease of keeping opponents marked, and her uncharacteristically strong recovery. Even after these changes, we expect she'll still sit pretty high up on tier list, as the versatility of her core design makes her power level quite resilient. We're also giving Terry a few changes to make him a bit more useful in her kit. First up, the forearm hurt boxes have been expanded slightly to cover her hands more. This makes some of her leaf blade attacks a little bit less disjointed. Her air acceleration has moved from 0.8 to 0.7. This adds more commitment to her incredibly fast approaches, since she has the highest airspeed in the game. Grabbing Maypul will now remove Mark from you. This only applies if the Mark came from the Maypul you grab. This gives players a more consistent way to remove Mark, since it's so easy to apply with neutral special. I actually really do like this change. I feel like getting marked, the only counterplay is to parry, and parrying can be pretty hard against a character like Maypul, unless she plays Lily kind of sloppily. So having another way to remove Mark is pretty interesting. I wonder if this will need changes in the future, because grabs are pretty easy to land, but so is landing Mark. Neutral special's speed can no longer break projectiles. This creates more counterplay to Maypul tossing seeds often in neutral. Forward special hitbox is shrunk and moved backwards. This reduces the disjoint of the move, allowing it to be intercepted easier. So here we see the changes. They're a lot smaller now, and you can definitely clock Maypul's head like that. The aerial down special knockback, so the version where she drops down on top of you, has been changed. The increased knockback scaling helps prevent looping this move repeatedly on fast fallers. Terry's damage has gone from 3% to 5%, and his knockback has also been changed. This increases the utility of Terry's attack, both when spawned and when swatting a seed away. Terry's seed detection radius has also gone from 40 to 65, which will make it more lenient to activate Terry's attack, especially with an opponent nearby. So see how the big difference is here? Terry will detect a seed and hit it a lot easier, and this will kind of let you hit opponents off stage maybe if you need to, or maybe opponents that would be caught by the seed they're standing right by Terry will still proc Terry's attack. All forward tilt hitbox radiuses have been changed from 50 to 40. This reduces the range and disjoint of this move slightly in all directions. I would argue this isn't slight, this seems like a pretty big change to me. So if you're a Maypul player and you're struggling with forward tilt now, let me know how it feels down below. Downward angled forward tilt animations change slightly so it doesn't hit as low. Along with the hitbox shrinking, this reduces its potency at ledge. This is pretty big. You're hitting notably higher than you used to, even at your lowest angle. And I am really curious how this changes up Maypul's gameplay, because she doesn't really have a lot of moves to hit an opponent directly below her. However, I do think this move did need a nerf, so we'll see how it settles. The forward tilt recovery has also gone from 17 to 19. We want to make this move slightly riskier to throw out in neutral. Neutral air's early hit knockback has also been edited. This makes it slightly worse when used after tether to KO off the side. This also makes the mix-up of neutral air up air after tethering into an opponent more viable, since inward DI will send more upwards, allowing it to KO off the top, better than when the opponent guessed wrong. Neutral air's late hitbox knockback has also been edited. The angle is being adjusted to match the early hit, and we're adjusting the knockback to make the late hit have more varied applications at low versus high percent. I think this would be cool to play around with. Maypul players as well, let me know if you're thinking this move is more fun to use, or if you're noticing a bit of a struggle with it. Neutral air's recovery has gone from 12 to 15 though. The small increase to the commitment when using neutral air off stage, both as an edge guard and a combo finisher combined with the knockback angle changes. This will often put opponents higher above Maypul after they get hit by an offstage neutral air. I imagine they don't want Nair to combo into up air in perilous situations for opponents, so they increase the cooldown. The forward air knockback angle has been changed from 320 to 325. This intent is to make DI out more effective at avoiding follow-ups, such as another forward air, so you won't get double forward aired as often, especially if you're at a higher percent. The forward air innermost hitbox radius has gone from 50 cm to 35 cm. This reduces the backwards range of the move. So you see here, it covered like a good chunk behind Maypul's head, and now it's a little bit not quite as covering. You see, like on her shoulder, there's not as much there. The up air body hitbox radius has been shrunk from 80 to 60. This decreases the effectiveness of this move when an opponent is below Maypul, but not really changing anything if they're not. So you see here, like the hitbox changed on her body. It used to hit down like almost midway through her tail, and now it hits about to her like waist maybe. I think this is a pretty good change. You're not going to be catching people unintentionally. I also like these changes because they don't necessarily make Maypul worse, right? Like if you use your forward air properly or if you use your up air properly, they're not worse, but you're not going to be catching people in spots where you probably shouldn't have before. You know what I mean? For a final change, the ledge attack will now lose its intangibility after the first active window instead of the second active window. This better offsets the strengths of this attack and makes it consistent with other 2-hit ledge attacks like Orcane's. I never thought that Maypul's ledge attack was super great because it is so slow, but this does make sense to be consistent. Moving on to Clairen though, we're cleaning up a few of her tippers that can be frustrating for her opponents, such as forward tilt, up tilt, and forward air, as well as some of them that can be frustrating for Clairen herself, like forward strong. We're also changing the functionality of the early hits of down air, so that she has space to use the move more precisely in order to spike an opponent. This patch also addresses her forward special being a bit too hard to intercept while also being difficult to punish on whiff. Sending a crouching opponent into a flinch with a tipper will no longer apply tipper stun. This interaction made Clairen a bit too good against crouch canceling. With this change, she will be an advantage, but she'll have less time for a follow-up. This basically means that crouch canceling is going to be a lot more viable against Clairen, and you'll actually get real reward from it, instead of just getting tipper stunned and then comboed like normal. Forward special intangibility starts on frame 10, moving to frame 16. This makes the window for punishing the startup longer. Now the intangibility starts as soon as she starts moving. The forward special grounded recovery after whiff is going from 25 to 30, and the forward special lands on whiff duration has moved from 15 to 24. This move is a bit too difficult to whiff punish, so we're adding some recovery frames to make the risk match the reward. Also, this is a form of like whiff lag, right? So I think it's kind of interesting to see how they add whiff lag to certain moves and not to others. Like I think that Fleet Down Special has this as well, so that's pretty interesting. Up Special will no longer cut Clairen's horizontal velocity in half when she lands. This makes it a bit easier to ledge cancel her up special. I think she needed this. I think that her recovery was good previously, but sometimes it like wouldn't snap the ledge or is hard to cancel, so I'm glad to see this change. Down Special's plasma field will now be destroyed when Clairen is KO'd. I like this. This is just good for the game to have like things remove and you start fresh with a new stock instead of being able to play around stuff you earned last stock. That special hit 1 hit pause multiplier against grounded opponents have been changed from 1.2 to 1.4. This makes hit 2 less likely to whiff against super floaty characters like Absa. Forward tilt tipper removes on the first active frame. This tipper was positioned in a way that was only really useful for hitting opponents below or behind Clairen, which led to some awkward tipper hits. So we see here, it used to be here, like right by your head, and now the next frame is going to be here, a little bit in front of her head. The up tilt tipper hitbox radius has gone from 50 to 35, that's a pretty big number change. The hitbox moved 50 centimeters outwards to preserve its range. Okay, so it's still going to have the same range, but the overall radius is a lot smaller, see? This reduces the downward range of the first hit and last active frames. The up tilt animation changed so the first and last active frames don't hit as low. The up tilt innermost sour spot radius has gone from 50 to 40. The hitbox has been moved 30 centimeters down her arm. This makes the hitbox move with her arm instead of staying stationary on her shoulder, decreasing the inward range of the move, especially during the first and last 2 active frames. So as we see here, this hits like pretty low, right? Like there's not really a character that's going to dodge this move unless they're like crouching really low, like maybe like crouching Orcane or Maypul could dodge this, right? But now we see it's a little bit higher off the ground, so there will be more ways to dodge it, especially as her sword moves and those hitboxes move with it. Up tilt's first 3 frames now send it 72 degrees, while the last 4 frames send it 77. Previously it was 75 degrees for the move's entire duration. Because the early hit is much easier to land than the late hit, we want to reward the shift to reflect that. I also think that this will mean that you'll have more DI to DI against Clairen's follow-up because you're not being sent straight up anymore, you'll have a little bit of an angle to work with. Forward strong sour spot hitbox moves slightly backwards on the second active frame and after. Forward strong second active frame tipper hitbox now reaches slightly further forward. The previous positioning of this hitbox made landing the tipper extremely inconsistent, since the width of the tipper and area varied greatly throughout the swing. This change aims to smooth out the tipper area, making a more consistent width throughout the whole swing. Forward Strunk's tipper and outer sour spot moved inwards by 10 centimeters at the bottom of the swing. This makes these hitboxes move almost straight downwards from the previous active frame, reducing some situations where the move would sour spot in situations where it felt like it should tipper. This also reduces the tipper range slightly at the bottom of the swing. So here we see the new visuals. The sweet spot is definitely a little bit more generous here, as you can see, and I assume the sweet spot will always take priority over the sour spot, but I'm not 100% sure, and this sour spot is a little bit more tucked in. Forward strong sour spot knockback has been changed, and the down strong sour spot knockback. These sour spots often felt like they were weak, even at extremely high percent, so we're increasing the scaling just a bit. This means that these sour spots will do a little bit more, but I doubt they're going to start killing anytime soon. The neutral air recovery has been changed from 15 to 17. Slight increase in the end lag to make comboing afterwards a bit tighter. I do think her neutral air is like really strong whenever I would play Clairen, because I mean truthfully I don't play Clairen a whole lot. I would just kind of mash the neutral air right, because it feels super safe, so hopefully this changes that a little bit. The forward air innermost hitbox radius has gone from 50 to 35. This applies to both hits, reducing the backwards range slightly. I don't think this is a big problem, because normally you're using forward air to actually like poke at opponents in front of you, right? You're not really using it to get the hilt's hitbox, right? You see like on her shoulder here, this hitbox is a lot smaller. Normally whenever you do use forward air, you are like really doing your best to space it, because the sour spot's really bad on that move anyways, so I don't think this change is like going to gut Clairen or anything like that. Forward air hit 1 sour spot knockback angle has changed from 82 to 72. This makes it less likely for DIN to result in the second hit reversing. Forward air hit 2 sour spot knockback has also been changed, the slight increase to the scaling so it doesn't combo for free at extremely high percents. This is probably good because you, as I said earlier, you don't want to be hitting those sour spots with forward air. That's a move where you always kind of want to land the sweet spot. Forward air's reverse tippers are now just regular sour spots, not tippers. This makes landing the reverse hit less rewarding since it won't stun the opponent anymore. Forward air hit 2's innermost sour spot now has the same knockback as other sour spots. Previously, the innermost sour spot sent at a higher angle than the other sour spots, making it better at comboing. Up air sour spot knockback has been edited, and its sour spot hit stun multiplier has gone from 0.9 to 1. This increases the knockback at higher percents while also increasing the effectiveness of DI away. The lower knockback angle also lets us remove the hit stun multiplier on the move, since it won't be as good at comboing into itself. This basically means that Clairen will have you in hit stun multiplier, or the hit stun in general, for longer, but you're going to have more agency with your DI and ability to escape her combo whenever she's laddering you with the up air. Remove the first frame of down air, increasing the startup from 15 to 16. The new first active frame has a sour spot that stretches upwards to the same range as the previous first active frame. With this change, she'll mostly be unable to spike opponents above her and instead get a sour spot hit. Down air early body sour spots have been moved behind Clairen, and the radius has been shrunk from 50 to 55. We also added a new sour spot to the base of her sword on the second active frame of down air that is priority over the tippers. This makes down air function like a normal tipper move instead of giving tippers higher priority and making her have to space her horizontally to get the early tipper. So here's the old patch, right? You can see this sweet spot is pretty high above her, right? This is a good chunk above her. And now on this same frame, there's just nothing here anymore. And then the next frame, there's going to be a sour spot, and then the sweet spot starts next to her. So no longer will Clairen be able to grab you out of the air with the down air. I always thought it was kind of cool how Clairen could knock you up with a move up tilt and then hit you back down. I like those combos like that where you go up and down. However, this move did feel a little bit crazy, right? It was a little bit too strong for sure. And being able to spike someone with a spike as strong as Clairen's down air, where you don't really even get to DI it into the wall, and they were above and next to you, right? That was a little bit broken. So I'm glad to see this move getting some kind of tuning. That was all of our Clairen changes, though. Overall, I don't really think Clairen got hit too hard. Just a lot of her hitboxes kind of got shifted around. Similarly to Maypul, actually, where the hitboxes are more precise, plus a few smaller, not quite as important nerfs, right? So Clairen and Maypul will definitely feel worse, but overall they should feel okay to play still. Orcane is where I start to get kind of worried. I kind of skimmed these patches before, as I mentioned, and I think my baby boy is in trouble, but let's get started with them. While Orcane's unorthodox hits can make him difficult to pilot, his fast movement, quick normals, strong zoning tools, and top-tier recovery make him a clear contender for the strongest rival. With all these strengths, he starts to lose his identity and falls back to basic fundamentals instead, which isn't what we envisioned for our slippery whale dog. To remedy this, we're toning down his burst movement speed and recovery, while also removing some of the mechanics that make using his zoning tools a bit too risky. His dash speed has gone from 19.8 to 16, which that's a crazy jump. I think he's going to feel really clunky now because of that. And his max horizontal jump speed has gone from 19.8 to 16. Orcane's horizontal burst movement potential was a bit high considering how slippery he is and how generally fast his attacks are. We're toning both down to his initial dash speed and horizontal jump speed so that he's not such a speed demon. Note that this does not affect his hydroplane speed, since his run speed was unchanged. As much as I am glad that his run speed was unchanged, I do feel like these are pretty heavy nerfs, and I wonder if these are going to stick around for too long, or if we'll see maybe like a half and half buff in a future patch. His short hop speed was changed from 17 to 18.4. This increased the height of the short hop by around 18 centimeters and increases the time spent airborne by 2 frames when not fast falling. This is probably going to seem like a buff on paper because it's like, oh, he gets to jump a little bit higher. However, this means that Nair is going to be a little bit less effective whenever like chaining it together because you have to stay in the air a few frames more. Bubble spawn locations are now no longer random and instead spawn using preset patterns. This applies to forward air, down special, and up throw. This reduces the randomness of the bubbles slightly, although they still have randomized movement after spawning. I like this change personally. I think that bubbles spawning randomly was kind of bad because if you got a bunch of bubbles on the right side and your opponent was on the left side of the puddle, now you're not hitting them as often and the move is worse. Frames between bubble hits have been reduced from 10 to 7. This makes more bubbles hit the opponent on average, increasing the reward for trapping an opponent in bubbles, especially if they get caught in the center cluster of bubbles. Getting hit by more bubbles also gives opponents more chances to ASDI out, which should help larger characters escape a little bit easier. This also prevents opponents from floor hugging or crouch canceling a bubble and then parrying the next one. This change is actually very, very good because you are going to be able to ASDI out easier, so there is more counterplay, right? Be sure to use both sticks to DI. But you also will not be able to crouch cancel or floor hug a bubble and then get a free parry. What I would have a lot of my matches happen is if my opponent was shielding and then I pop bubbles on their shield to apply shield pressure. At lower percents, all they have to do is just crouch cancel and then parry, and they get a free parry out of shield, which felt really bad, and that won't be happening anymore. Bubble hit pause is also moved from 4 to 3. This makes sure opponents aren't trapped for too long with the shorter time between bubbles. Getting hit by a bubble will now put parry on a 10 frame cooldown. This prevents floor hugging parrying bubbles, even if subsequent bubbles whiff for a few frames after the initial hit. So this will mean, like, let's say if you don't get hit by a bubble right away after you got hit by the previous one, you still won't be able to parry that bubble. Bubbles will now be destroyed when Orcane is hit. This rewards opponents for breaking through Orcane's zoning tools. I think this is a really good change. I feel like it's not very fun to hit an opponent and then like lose because you hit your opponent, right? So I like this change overall. I like the idea of lingering projectiles kind of going away whenever you start your advantage state. Puddle will now turn into a falling droplet when the ground beneath it disappears, reforming into a puddle after landing. I think that's how it worked in Rivals 1, but I might be wrong. This only affects a few niche scenarios, but makes it so that Puddle doesn't get completely deleted without any input from Orcane. I really like this change because I've had situations where I put the droplet on the top platform of Julesville, the one that like moves back and forth and disappears after a bit. And that's like not a good spot to have the puddle because it's not going to always be there, right? Now I can leave the droplet there and not have to worry about it because I know I will get my puddle back, even if I do get put off stage at an awkward time. Forward special can no longer fast fall until it enters the special fall window. This brings it in line with other similar moves, making it more committal before being able to drop quickly. Forward special is no longer intangible during the travel frames. Previously, this move allowed Orcane to reach the wall with no chance of being intercepted, allowing him to easily wall tech any attempt to hit him during the move's vulnerable window. This problem was compounded by the distance that Orcane covers with the teleport. This change allows opponents to intercept Orcane before he reaches the wall, adding some counterplay to this extremely strong recovery tool. This does not apply to his empowered forward special. So empowered forward special will still be invulnerable. However, you'll now be able to hit Orcane at any point during his forward special, which should make his recovery a lot worse. Forward special's initial startup window length has been changed from 10 to 15, but the special travel frames have been changed from 10 to 5. Forward special travel speed has been doubled so the distance is unchanged. This keeps the timing of the attack the same, but minimizes the time that Orcane spends traveling, making intercepting it a bit more difficult. So this means overall, Orcane's forward special will be faster whenever he's actually moving, but the startup is a lot slower, so you either have to commit to trying to hit him during the startup, or commit to hit him during these 5 frames where he's traveling. You can't really try to aim for both unless you have like just like a massive down air or something like that, maybe like Etalus, or something like that. A special cancel can no longer fast fall until it enters the special fall window. This prevents Orcane from quickly falling to grab ledge, making his intangible ledge stall much less lenient and reducing his mix-ups when recovering high. So something that I used to do a lot is I would jump from ledge, then use the up special because I'm invincible during it, fast fall, and then I could immediately grab ledge and refresh my ledge intangibility, which would let me like invincibility like ledge guard somebody or ledge hog. right? I don't know if invincibility is a word, but we're gonna rock with that. But it was super strong, and this change should prevent the potency of that. Up special cancel landing lag has gone from 22 to 30, which is a pretty big jump. This gives more opportunity for punishing Orcane, after forcing him to recover high on the stage. Orca Hop max vertical speed will now decrease by 3 cm of frame with each use until Orcane touches the ground or grabs the ledge with a minimum of 20 cm per frame. The maximum is 35 cm of frame. This rewards players for intercepting Orcane's recovery since it will lose the height each time he has to use it. This means you're going to be incentivized to recover to your puddle after you've been intercepted 2 or 3 times because Orca Hop is just not going to be super useful anymore. Forward Tilt's head hurtbox is now intangible starting on frame 5 until the first recovery frame. This makes the startup harder to interrupt from a long range. Up Tilt center hitbox radius has gone from 60 to 50, and Up Tilt side hitbox radius from 60 to 40. This makes the move a bit thinner, so it's harder to chain together multiple times. I think the goal of this is not to make the move bad in neutral, because the move is already a little bit tricky to land if you weren't coming in from like a wave dash or you weren't doing like jab into it. So this should just basically mean that it's going to be harder now to chain together. It's not necessarily going to be harder to land in neutral because you're using tools to properly space it already before. The down tilt sweet spot knockback has been edited. This makes it weaker at lower percents and stronger around 84%, making it more dynamic at different percents. This angle change is very slight, but it makes it so opponents will go straight up when they DI in and go a little bit further out when they DI out. I'm not sure how I feel about this. I feel like down tilt was like really important for Orcane to kill. It provided a lot of setups she really did need, but the move was also very centralizing to his kit because he used down tilt to do your kill confirms and to start your low percent combos, so I'm curious to play around with this and see if there's more nuance in this kit now. Maybe I need to use up tilt more because down tilt's not doing as much. I think it'd be interesting. Forward strong recovery has gone from 26 to 30. Empowered forward strong recovery from 32 to 34. This move is too difficult to punish in many situations. I'm personally kind of bummed about this because I'm a very mid-level decent player, right? But a lot of mid-level decent players are not properly spacing around or respecting the forward strong, so I could kind of throw that out some stocks and just win. So I'm bummed to see this move get nerfed. It was one of my favorites in this kit, but that's a-okay. Neutral R cooldown on bounce has gone from 2 to 3. At some points, it became possible to chain neutral R bounces together. This is not intended, so we're extending the cooldown by 1 frame to prevent it. I'm kind of bummed about this because neutral R is really important to Orcane's kit, but this being the only nerf that it received is okay with me. Forward air's horizontal speed will be clamped to Orcane's max horizontal speed when it hits a shield. This increases the reward for shielding the move, so basically overall forward air is going to become much worse on shield because you're going to slow down drastically as soon as you do tap a shield. Up air sour spot knockback angle has been changed from 70 to 75. This makes it less likely for it to KO off the side at higher percents, while making sure the DI out still helps escape up air loops. Up air spike hitbox now has an early hit with knockback at this number during the first 2 frames. Up air spike hitbox is a late hit knockback of this number. This gives Orcane more reward for landing the early spike hit, while keeping the late hitbox fairly similar to before due to its decaying-based knockback. I like this change. It basically incentivizes you spacing your move, but it makes sure the move still lingers. The forward throw knockback has also been changed, and the empowered throw knockback has been changed. The slight increase in knockback scaling for both versions of forward throw so that Orcane can KO opponents with them a little bit earlier. This is nice because down tilt received those changes where you'll be able to DI out and you won't have as many true confirms off of down tilt anymore, so having forward throw as a good kill option is always nice. Get up specials for this tail hitbox will now come out 2 frames later. This prevents the move from hitting below the platform underneath Orcane. Basically this means whenever you do the special get up, you're going to whenever you do the leap with your tail, you won't hit people below you, which I guess is a good quality of life. It always feels kind of corny whenever you use a move on a platform that doesn't hit below necessarily, but it does hit someone tall, maybe Kragg or Loxodont whenever they're below you. It feels a little bit unfair, you know? So this change overall, very fair. Overall with Orcane's changes, I don't think these changes are too bad, right? Orcane will still be good. However, I think the movement changes are by far the most impactful. I think Orcane was really marked by having super good movement if you were really precise with him. So seeing that these things get nerfed, but you get a bubble buff in return, I'm not 100% sure if that's worth that, right? I like to use the bubble aspect of Orcane's kit, but I don't really ever feel like I'm winning because of bubbles, right? I'm winning because I did things and then also used bubbles, right? So seeing his movement, which is what enabled him to be so strong, get gutted so hard, I'm a little worried about that, I won't lie. Y'all might see me on a bit more Absa this patch, which might not be a bad thing. Moving on though to Etalus, they say, Etalus has received a plethora of buffs and quality of life changes since his initial release. putting him in a very solid spot amongst the cast. We've got a few more of those to go around, but we also want to address him as more over-centralizing moves like down air and down tilt, as well as lowering his air acceleration, as it allowed him to play a little too safe with his offense. Like a lot of the other recently changed characters, his recovery is also getting a form of diminishing returns, so that opponents are rewarded more for intercepting him. I'm gonna be real before we go into these, I kind of skimmed them a little bit. I think Etalus is really, really good. He's, I don't want to say frustrating to fight, but there's some spots where it kind of feels like you don't have a lot of options against him, so I'm hoping to see those addressed. I don't necessarily want a billion Etalus buffs, like I feel like he's in a pretty good spot and might be very good this patch. Knockback velocity will now decay at the normal rate when on ice. Previously, he would maintain too much horizontal momentum after teching, which could lead to him slipping off the ledge in unexpected cases. This is good, this happened to me a lot. It's super frustrating because if you buffered a move like get up attack, after being knocked down, then you would get like something like Nair, and then you would just die because those moves linger for a good bit. His air acceleration has gone from 0.85 to 0.75. This reduces the effectiveness of approaching with an aerial and then retreating to make it safe. His air acceleration is still 0.85 during Up Special's launch window. This is good, it won't mess up his recovery, but everything else should be a little bit less safe. His weight with Ice Armor has gone from 150 to 180. This significantly increases his survivability with Ice Armor. This is not a small jump at all, like a 30-point weight jump is very crazy. Forward Special cooldown has gone from 75 to 100. This decreases the effectiveness of repeated forward specials when edgeguarding opponents. This is nice to see. I feel like Etalus should probably only get one forward special during this time. However, it might make placing ice in neutral a little bit harder in some spots. Up Special's maximum charge will now decrease by 5 frames after each use of Etalus touching the ground, or until he touches the ground. This rewards opponents for intercepting his recovery. The usage count will only go up when he actually launches himself upwards, so will not be penalized for getting hit during the startup or cancelling the startup with an air dodge. For a quick bug fix, losing Ice Armor during Up Special will now also remove his Super Armor. Special Pummel Knockback against aerial opponents has been changed. This makes it more rewarding for Etalus when the opponent happens to slide off stage after activating a Special Pummel. Jab 2's speed boost now happens 1 frame earlier. This makes tilt boosting consistently give the speed boost instead of going nowhere when performed as early as possible. The Jab 3 Sour Spot Knockback has also been changed. This Sour Spot was extremely bad on hit, so we're making it a little bit better so Etalus isn't punished as hard for landing it. His head and chest hurt boxes are now projectile intangible during dash attacks active frames. This change prevents some specific situations where projectiles could go over his projectile killer hitbox and hit his back. I think this is a good change, it just makes it more consistent. I think having the idea of dash attack being projectile immune is cool, and now that it's actually consistent, you can definitely rely on that a little bit more. For Tilt's once back hitbox knockback has been changed. This should make it more consistently link into hit 2 when hitting an opponent with the innermost hit part of forward tilt 1. Down tilt part 2 recovery has been changed from 16 to 20. This makes choosing to do the second hit a bit of a higher commitment, since previously it had the exact same recovery as down tilt part 1. This also reduces his follow-ups afterwards a bit, since they were a little too lenient for our liking. I think things like down tilt 2 into forward air was like really strong, so now you should have a little bit more time to DI those at higher percents for sure. Upstrong now has a small hitbox in the center of his body on the first active frame. This helps prevent it whiffing against small characters at point blank range. I think this is really important. I think his strongs were inconsistent, and I think it's okay to have some moves be a little bit inconsistent, like, oh, you only got hit by the startup. However, with Etalus, it happened a little bit more than I would personally like, so I like to see these kind of changes. Back air active frames have been changed from 3 to 4. This makes it match the visual better, while giving him more coverage behind him in the air. The recovery frames were adjusted to keep the as soon as actionable frame the same as before. The down air recovery frames have moved from 21 to 24. This adds a little bit of commitment when using this move off stage. I'm glad about this because a super like lingering spike that also actually spikes really well is always hard to balance, so seeing a little bit more lag on this, I'm pretty happy. The down air landing lag has also been changed from 12 to 14. This move is pretty safe to throw out, with its large hitbox, long active frames, unique movement stall, and incredible reward on hit, so adding a bit of landing lag to tone it down. Overall, I think the changes are all good for Etalus. I think they're more or less a net positive because the things that got buffed, like his Ice Armor weight, right, will really, really matter. However, he definitely did get a few nerfs here, so it is a mixed bag for the bear. And if you're an Etalus player, let me know how you're feeling on this patch. For Olympia was very, very strong last patch. We saw her get a lot of success in big events, so I'm curious to see what they changed about her here. They start by saying, Olympia's combo game is extremely strong, especially with the consistency of her up special as a finisher. While that is a core part of her design, we want to make sure her combos don't become stale, so we're making a few changes to give opponents more agency when launched by some of her more potent combo moves, such as down tilt, up air, and up throw. You've also noticed that the strength of her gym toss as a neutral tool disincentivizes her from having her gym field deployed, so we're toning it down to balance it out as a utility a little bit more. Gym toss startup has gone from 8 to 11. This makes it slightly more reactionable in neutral, and medium, and long ranges. Gym toss damage has gone from 5 to 4, and gym toss knockback has been changed. The gym toss base knockback will now decay from 3.5 to 2 throughout its active window, so the further away an opponent is, the less knockback they'll take. This makes having her gym field deployed a less determinant to her general game plan, since the projectile is less rewarding on hit. Gym Dash's traveling hitbox is moved backwards. This reduces the disjoint of the move, allowing it to be intercepted easier. Now, you won't be able to you can trade with the Gym Dash, right? See how this is in front of her, right? And there's no way you would ever trade here if you're both using a non-disjointed move. But now, Olympia's hitbox kind of peeks out a little bit more, so you will be able to trade with her or just hit her for using it. The forward special front hitbox has been removed. This reduces the disjoint of the move, allowing it to be intercepted easier. The same thing happened here. I'm kind of bummed about this one because I feel like forward special was not a move you were using a lot in neutral, right? You weren't throwing this move out, it was already pretty easy to intercept. So I think this just generally makes her recovery worse, right? You can kind of treat her like Ganondorf, in Smash games now, where it's all you have to do is just drop with an aerial that hits around you, right? And Olympia's not going to be able to grab you, she can't do anything about that anymore, so I'm not actually sure if I love this change. Forward special goes on cooldown for 50 frames on startup. This prevents ledge refreshes with repeated forward specials without affecting other general use cases. Up specials and multi-hit hitboxes no longer interpolate. This makes them less disjointed from below. And the up special final hit back hitbox has been removed. This hitbox was unnecessary for linking, and usually just ended up causing unexpected hits against opponents trying to punish it instead. So these are the new changes. You're going to be seeing this is how far it hits below Olympia, right? And now you're not really hitting below at all. And then this final hit back here on her tail is just completely gone. I think these changes are fine, truthfully. However, I do worry someone might pop out if they ASDI down, if they're a fast faller. I'm not 100% sure if this hitbox was covering that. We would have to see. But I do think shrinking moves hitboxes, right? It's a good nerf because it just makes the character more skillful, right? You have to aim your move a little bit better. However, this one, as long as no one's falling out, it should be fine. The up special startup has also gone from 7 to 10. We want to make this move very slightly harder to combo into, since it is such a consistent finisher. The up special final hit knockback has also been changed, and they say that we're lowering the knockback scaling so that it kills slightly later. Overall, it looks like they're trying to make up special a good bit worse, which I do get because the move is very, very strong. The down special's armored window will now fall faster with each use, reaching normal max fall speed on the third use. This doesn't affect the use of the move if it's cancelled immediately, but reduces the positional mix-up potential of holding it to charge and then cancelling it late in the move. I think this change is cool. They're just kind of making recoveries worse if you stay off stage for longer, but they're not making recoveries worse in general, right? So Olympia, if she does choose to use the down special armor window, she's going to have diminishing returns, kind of like what they mentioned with Etalus, and then also Orcane and Maypul. The dash attack recovery has gone from 21 to 25. This move is slightly too hard to punish for its speed. Forward tilt now has a late hit of the last 3 active frames with knockback of, and they say, this move has a fairly long active window, but was the same strength for the entire time, making it feel weird when it would hit in the later frames and still be just as strong. So now this is a new sour spot basically being added to the end of the move. Forward tilt hit pause multiplier has gone from 1.0 to 1.2. This gives opponents a little more time to react to the move, making it less effective as a surprise DI mix-up. You'll have a lot more time to DI here now, and I assume this will prevent you from dying quite as early in the future. Since you'll be able to have your proper DI, not because the move is weaker though. Down tilt knockback angle has been changed from 80 to 75. This angle is still extremely good, but good DI will be more effective against it. The neutral hit 2 knockback has also been changed. This move is sending into tumble a bit too early, so reducing the base knockback and increasing the knockback scaling. This means that the move will feel more similar at more mid percents probably, but at earlier percents it won't be quite as potent. Up air early and mid hit knockback angles have been changed from 70 to 65. This makes outward DI more effective for escaping repeated up air combos. And finally, Olympia's up throw recovery has been changed from 30 to 32. This slightly decreases the follow-ups after this extremely versatile throw. Overall, I think Olympia did get hit pretty hard. These are not as much hitbox changes, I mean there are a few, right, but she does have a handful of other changes things to Gym Dash, and then her up special just being worse overall. She's just going to be killing later pretty much always, except for outside of landing like a forward air or landing like a spike, right? So I think like if you are an Olympia main, I'd love to hear what you think, but Olympia is just going to be like straight up worse, right? Like her combos are worse with up throw and up air, and then her like nair is worse at like lower percents, and her down tilt's worse, and like her up B is worse. Like everything Olympia wants to be using is just like overall worse now, and I'm kind of concerned for her because I mean I think Olympia was strong, but she didn't feel like she was like broken. But these nerfs feel like they're like really trying to like adjust like a character that they believe is broken. And while I do think she was like definitely like up there, like probably like top 2, top 3, like these feel like a lot, especially compared to other characters. I feel like Olympia and Orcane definitely got hit the hardest today. But finally moving on to our last character, Absa. They say, up special can no longer fast fall until it reaches the special fall window. Absa has very low lag, if she lands before entering the special fall. Without fast falling, this means she has to end up the up special movement fairly close to the ground in order to avoid the long landing lag. Forward Tilt Part 2 is now a real projectile instead of just being a large physical hitbox. This fixes a few interactions like it being able to break Kragg's pillar, while it's still projectile immune, or not reflecting to hit Absa when parried. For some bug fixes for Absa, they say the down throw now ignores weight like all other throws. And pummeling an opponent will no longer detach Cloud after Absa sticks it to herself. So overall, Absa is going to be a little bit more consistent now. Her up special is not going to be quite as abusable on stage, which is kind of a bummer for me. I like to like up special into someone and then like go straight up above them and then do like a sweet spot down air, which I don't think will be quite as potent now, but I'm sure it'll still be usable, especially on like characters at higher percents or heavier characters, right? But overall, Absa more or less unchanged. She's just going to feel more consistent in how she should have been at the start of the game, especially like this forward tilt. Like this always probably should have been like that. Overall, as I said, I think Olympia and Orcane probably got hit the hardest. I am an Orcane player, so take that as you will. Like, obviously, I'm going to mourn my little baby boy, but I do think he got hit pretty hard. If you're a Clairen player or a Maypul player, I'm really curious what you think. I can't really tell how hard these nerfs are, because a lot of them are just, like, hitbox stuff, but Maypul forward tilt being a lot worse is definitely, like, really drastic for her. And overall, I'm glad to see the changes to Kragg and Wrastor, and then also, as I mentioned, to Absa, because I think small changes like that to like keep characters like updated and feeling fresh is important, but these aren't like make or break balance changes. Like Kragg is not going to move around in the meta, right? Kragg's not going to become like notably worse because his pillar hits a little bit lower, you know? So I do like changes like that to keep the cast fresh, but not necessarily shake up their metagame. But that being said though, that goes ahead and wraps up this video. I haven't stitched all the clips together, and I had like a lot of breaks in here because I'm still getting over being sick a little bit. So sorry if I've sounded kind of crusty today, but I think this one's been pretty long, so thank you tons for watching until the end. I'm going to have a channel update coming out at the end of this week because I'm starting my college semester again, and so from being sick and like getting ready for college, I've been a little bit behind on videos, so I'm super sorry for that. We're going to have some Zetterburn guides and a podcast about Zetterburn later next week, so I hope you guys look forward to that one. With that being said though, I'm going to dip out of here, and I hope you all have a good one. Bye for now!